Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. Hello. All right, so today we're going to be talking about American Brujeria. And let me get everyone on stage here so we can all see each other's lovely faces.
Hey,
Hello, Cynthia.
hey everybody.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi, Kiera.
Hi.
All right, so today, what we'll be covering, we are going to start with our introductions. Everybody's going to get a chance to go around and introduce themselves. And then after that, we have, I always get these backwards. I always mean to put opening announcements first, but we're going to have our opening announcements, then our intros, and then we'll get into our book club discussion for today. And then after that, we'll conclude with our closing announcements. So, before we get into anything, I did want to take a moment for us to acknowledge our native land spirits. And I wanted to read our land acknowledgement for today. We honor and acknowledge the land we stand on. This is occupied territory that was once Lenape-Hoking and is the home to Lenape people. We acknowledge that this land was stolen by settlers and that the mistreatment of its first people continues to this day. While we live in a world that settlers created, we promise to work on building a better world with the help and leadership of the land's original inhabitants. We honor this land and thank this land for the many gifts that it continues to give us each day. Thank you for allowing us to fight on with and for you. And that is our land acknowledgement for the Lenape people, the native land spirits of Manhattan and what we now know as New York. And with our native land spirits here in book club, we like to just take a step further and do a little bit more than just, reading a statement and then moving on forward. So today I wanted to bring the question to you guys of thinking about the ways that you move in your practice. What are some ways that you find yourself acknowledging the land, honoring the land? And I'm not looking for any answers or like anybody's, this is not a quiz or anything, but just something for you guys to think about. And I want you guys to, just think about that question, journal on it, give it some thought, and really try to do some self reflection if you notice that it's needed. How do I honor the land in my practice? And what can I do to further honor the land if that's something I want to really incorporate in there? And with that statement being said, I also want to remind everyone that it doesn't have to be revolutionary, like huge things. Like nobody's asking you to go start a new nonprofit and do all these things. It can be little. It can be picking up litter when we see it. It could be volunteering for a community garden. So just taking some time to think about how can we honor the land today in our ways, in a way that brings respect and honor back to the native land spirits of wherever you're at. Right. So moving on forward, let's get to learning a little bit about who's in the room. So for our introductions, we do name, pronouns, magical paths, native spirits of your land, and the progress you've made on the book so far. And let me just back up one slide really quickly here. If you see the link on there, native-land.ca, if you don't know who your native land spirits are, you can go visit that website and find out if that is something that we need, that resource is available. All right. So I like to try to go in alphabetical order. And based on who's on the room right now, I think that would be you, Cynthia. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone. Can y'all hear me or all right, great,
Yeah, we
thanks.
can.
Thanks. Well, I'm Cynthia and my pronouns are she, her, hers. My magical path is extremely eclectic. Although I have delved deep into certain things and at some point wanted to choose, but I decided not to for other reasons. And the native spirits here, because I'm in Texas and where I am in San Antonio, is the Payaya of the Kwahitaco Nation. And I have, I read the book. I love the book. I just, it's awesome. And it just goes exactly to what Texas is all about, and the spiritualities that I've dealt with here in Texas, which would definitely be folk or Mexican
Yeah.
Brujeria. Although I was very, very, very much Santeria at one point too. But
Yes, I love that. I love the flow of our crafts, right? And how they can go in so many different traditions without us even planning on it, right?
yeah.
Thank you, Cynthia. And that would have Kiara next.
Hi. New. I forgot to put my pronouns, but they're she, hers, her. So I guess for magical paths, I'm still learning. I researched a lot, but I was one of those, spent 10 years researching, 1 year finally started. But I would probably lean towards folk magic in general, kind of eclectic folk focus. I'm on Lenape land too, New Jersey. So, and book progress, none, unfortunately. I did get the book though. So after we have this discussion, I'll be able to actually listen to it on audiobook since I've been so busy this week. But
I love that. Thank you for being here, Kiara. And yeah, read the book, didn't read the book. Yeah, whatever. As long as we're here, we get to have some discussion. And if anything, it's like a little pre-discussion. Then you'll get into the book with your own thoughts. So I think it works either way, before or after.
yeah, I'm excited to hear what everybody who read it thought.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here, and I'm ready to get into the discussion too. I'm really excited about this one. All right, next up we have Jimmy.
Hi everyone. I'm at work by the way, so that's why. But I'm brand new here too. I never read the book, but I like you just stated. After this discussion, I'm gonna go ahead and go purchase or read it in the audio book and really just start, like digesting information and highlight, underline information that sticks out to me, so that way it can help me with my research as well. Cause I'm getting into I'm big in spirituality, so I'm researching and looking for everything. I don't know the native, what is it? The native land, right?
Yeah, native land spirits.
Yeah, the native land spirit. I don't know. I'm in New York City though, so yeah, I don't know much about that, so I'm kind of limited. I'm sorry.
No, totally fine. Finding out about these things and learning about them is how we can grow, right? We have to hear about things somewhere to start with. And hey, now we know. So now that's something that if you wish to pursue and learn about, we can, right? So no
Right.
worries. We all start somewhere. It's totally fine.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Jimmy. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you.
And yay,
Appreciate you.
some first time members. We got 2 people today that are new. That's so exciting. All right. And I think next up would be me. So, hi, I'm Nori. My pronouns are she, they. My magical path, I'm a self dedicated Wiccan, currently going through some like new changes right now. This book honestly really inspired me to explore more of Santeria and getting into hoodoo land as well. So, I've been exploring different branches of folk magic um, and native spirits. I am also here in New York. So, it's the Lenape Hoking. And book progress, I like ran through the book in one night somehow. I always do that. And I really enjoyed it. It was really good, really a lot of great information. And last but not least, Nisi.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Shanice. Everyone calls me Nisi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My magical path is like Christian folk witch. Native spirits here are the Muskogee people because I'm in South Carolina. I'm in Greenville specifically. And book progress, I just started chapter 8, so I'm on page 165.
Love. All right. And that concludes our introduction. So again, thank you everyone for being here and taking some time out of your day to discuss a really good book. And let's get into it. So with this book club discussion today, normally on the screen, I only have like some different discussion questions, but today I felt inspired to do something a little bit differently. So on the left side, you'll see some questions there. What was something new you learned from the book? What was anything you wish was different in the book? Anything that you didn't agree with that you saw in there? And did this book inspire you to want to try something new in your practice? Even are people that haven't finished the book, I wonder if you've done some skimming and something maybe like stood out to you. You're like, oh, maybe this looks really interesting. And on the right side, it's not all the chapters in the book, but I took the chapter names and just kind of put them out as like general topics we can discuss, because the way this book worked out, he J. Allen Cross like talked about like the church working with Guadalupe, then breaking it down to like working with candles and discussing Santa Muerte in like big detail for a whole chapter. So I wanted to make sure we had time to kind of discuss all the various topics going on. So with the discussion today, like feel free to jump from topic to topic, but I wanted to kind of provide that so we could have a reminder of like, oh, what was that thing he talked about? And we can discuss and jump around that way. And yeah, so I'll stop talking now. And I want to open the floor to you guys to start us anywhere. Do you want to start with something new you learned, something that inspired you? Where do we want to go?
I will start. Something did this book inspire you to try something new in your practice? It inspired because I'm Christian and he's coming from a Catholic perspective, because culturally this is, you know, Mexican folk magic. This really is inspiring me to work more deeply with Mother Mary. So yeah, I really liked his perspective on Mary. I liked in on page 47, when he was talking about praying the rosary. We must also remember that Mary is simply the earthly human face of a much larger spirit. When we pray the rosary, we are actually forging a connection with the divine feminine, she who birthed everything. I encourage you to look much deeply at this process beyond just praying some Christian prayers to a Christian woman. Bars. You are connecting to the first mother and honoring the power of her spirit. In this way, we make sure she is not forgotten. It was a whole bar. So I do want to start working more deeply, having a more intimate connection with Mary, because growing up Southern Baptist, we only learn about Mary in a very base level. Like, you know, it's taught to women, you know, we emulate Mary from this sense of meekness, mildness, from like playing in the background. Women don't necessarily come in the forefront, especially in the Christian mythos. So just having that perspective, how they pray with such reverence, strength, ferocity, has really lit something up in my spirit as far as working with Mary. So I will definitely be doing some research and doing some woo woo with Mary. I really enjoyed that so very much.
I love that you brought that up, because I felt the same way, honestly, because on the other end for me, like I'm not a Christian witch. I kind of did the opposite thing where we run away from Christianity the second we discover witchcraft, and we're like, I don't want to do anything related to it. Um, but like due to other life events, and then come into this chapter and that exact same section you just read, Nisi, like we are praying to something that has a what was it? We also must remember that Mary is simply an earthly human face of a much larger spirit. Like that part really made me like think a little bit deeper about like, okay, yes, I understand Christianity is a religion and like, sure, it's caused me some harm. And there's still a lot of truth within like the Christian mythos, right? And the stories. So yeah, like it also really inspired me to kind of come to Mary and really look at her for her entire image and not just like the certain faces that we're used to seeing, right? Yeah, I love that you brought that up so much, Nisi.
And I guess I can just say that I have never, I mean, even though I was heavily brought up in the Christian church throughout my life, and then even when I started exploring my own spiritualities, for me, I never ever ever looked at Mary as though she was kind of meek and mild, because I think like if we want to take something literally, okay, way back when, how you gonna tell your husband that you're pregnant? And you know, it ain't you, boo. We never been together, but you know, this is God's son that I'm gonna be birthing. And so I always thought like, you know what? She's kind of gangster. Because you know, I mean, for her to stand up and say that and do that, and then because I've traveled different places, there are a lot of places where it's basically her, but it's like the Black Madonna. And Mary does never look like she does here in the United States, rarely ever, and that's why they call her the Black Madonna. She's black, he's black. I mean, all of that. And I've just always thought of her as one strong mama.
I love that. Kiera, yes.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who hasn't read the book, but I guess you could say been inundated with a lot of Mary imagery all throughout my life. You come up from descendants of slaves, basically, and there's a lot of church, there's a lot of, Christianity wrapped up in that because of how we got here and how we were, indoctrinated and all that stuff. But I don't think that Christianity itself is bad. You know, my grandmother was very into the church. My grandfather was very into the church. So every summer I would be there in that environment and then come back to New Jersey and be basically kind of agnostic almost because it wasn't a really big part of my regular upbringing. So I guess when I think about Mother Mary and stuff, it's not necessarily that I feel divorced from her or a part of her, but her imagery is everywhere for me. There have been fantasy books that I've read where she shows up as, a main character. I've been drawn to, in particular, like Santa Muerte aesthetic kind of stuff. Like I have a tarot card deck of that. And mothers, matriarchs are really important in my family, but also in like all the practices that I've been kind of drawn to. So when you think about that, she's a very specific image, but she's all throughout all the different faiths. It's very like always lead to the summit kind of thing. So I'm always kind of drawn to, I guess, the folk practices that really push the mother image forward, that really say, these are the people who uphold community, uphold the family. And in particular, this image, this Mary image, is not just the mother of Jesus, but the mother of an entire religion, if you think about it like that. So I find that really interesting. I'm really looking forward to reading the book and learning how they interpret that, how they bring that to the forefront.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, Kiera. It's making me think about, even specifically with Mary, right? He mentions it like towards the beginning of her chapter, how the story of, I cannot say that, Kwautla Toatzin, and how that name has essentially like morphed into Guadalupe. It's on page 35 if you have the book in front of you. And after kind of reading that section, the story of like how archaeologists and historians think Mary was like this one Mayan Aztec goddess who once like Mexico got colonized, she kind of morphed into Guadalupe, right? And I just always find that really interesting, like how folk Catholicism is and was created, right? Like taking these like ancient gods and goddesses and putting them into the saints, and then how they still show up, right? And how Guadalupe has now become so prominent despite like that colonization happened. And I guess the point here is just really interesting how when a certain like goddess wants to be known, any deity wants to be known, they will find a way to show up. And if they need to adjust to the times and need to like accommodate to the situation, like they will. And I was just curious, like what you guys think about that, just any thoughts around that transition that happens. And we're just seeing in this one example.
Not to comment here, but just real quick, I just want to say, like you were talking about symbolism. I mentioned Mary kind of shows up, but I just remembered that my friend, she's from Scotland. She was talking to me about something that I was working on for a book I was writing. And she mentioned someone named Guadalupe. And I think she was like a slave revolt leader. And the reason why she came up is because she was pregnant during the slave revolt. So there's a statue of her somewhere, full belly, standing up for her people. And I was just like, why does this keep happening? This keeps popping up. And then this, I just joined the portal. I just joined the group. And the first thing that we discuss during the month of my birthday is, Mother Mary and that kind of stuff, that folk tradition. I'm paying attention. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And then another sort of element to this topic here, he mentions in like one sentence really quickly how Like, I think he has his own theory of Hecate being another face of Guadalupe. And I love that he said that, because I've had that thought come across me as well. And like trying to, it's an interesting thought piece. And I think there's something to be said there. And I think, I just wonder what those connections might be. And I wanted to know, what did you guys think? If you read it, about that connection with Mary and Hecate, like, do you think it's there? Do you think it's not there? And even if you didn't read the book, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that's something to be explored? And I wonder what that could say about this whole thing we're doing, right? Because Hecate is from, yeah, Greek mythology, and then we have Guadalupe, and I just,
Well,
yeah.
My understanding of Hecate, based on like loving Greek mythology growing up, was maybe, I guess she could be seen as like a dark aspect of the Mother Mary image, because I always see Mother Mary as very like angelic, very light driven, positive aspect. But Hecate, as a keeper of the hearth is what I understand it. For whatever reason, I always had images of her like in the dark, leading people through the dark with like a lantern up. And I don't know if that's correct, but it seems kind of like the duality of a Persephone figure, where like she starts off as like a maiden goddess and then becomes queen of the underworld kind of thing. The Hecate aspect would almost seem like a darker aspect of the Mary image, but still all about the home and protecting family. I don't know if that makes sense, or if I'm correct on that, though. You could probably tell me, because you're more in that tradition. So.
No, I appreciate your insights, and no, you're not wrong. Like, though, maybe the only thing I would mention differently, that, well, honestly, no, because who am I to say anything that's wrong, right? If your image of Hecate is with a lantern, that makes sense. Which does make sense with her mythology, because traditionally she's known to have her two torches. So a lantern really isn't that far off. Yes, right. There's so many connections between how like these deities work. And then the other kind of element I wanted to bring up, where does that leave Santa Muerte? Like, is she this other element? Where are those connections there? And kind of transitioning from Guadalupe into Santa Muerte, what did you guys get from the chapter? What was new that you learned? What was something insightful there? And again, even if you didn't read, just any thoughts on Santa Muerte?
So I really enjoyed when the chapter first opened up on Santa Muerte, when he describes her. She is
Mhm.
death itself. She is the taking. Many deities such as Hades, Hell, Hecate are all gods that rule over the place you go when you die, and therefore are often placed in the same basket. However, Santa Muerte is the action of death. She is your own death as much as she is death as an idea. Bars. Again.
Yes.
So that was just really insightful on how to see her as actual death itself, the action of death, the action of dying. If you want to contemplate your own demise or ascension, however you would choose to see that, or if you've seen the passing of a loved one, if you've seen plants pass, if you've handled animals and animals that pass, she is the actual act of that taking itself. So that put that in so much more perspective, reverence, and respect. And I really enjoyed how he handled Santa Muerte, because for a while, once she, got popping, if I can say that as pop culturally as possible, once she kind of gained like some popularity, it seemed kind of woo woo. If you can hear what I'm saying, like it seemed very almost love and light, even though you see her and she's got like the black cloak, the skeleton, the flowers, the scythe, like she seems pretty intimidating. So just kind of getting that deeper perspective on her. It shows his level of understanding, how much he wants you to understand how to approach her, if you even should, because he gave a couple of really great sentences on if you even should approach Santa Muerte that were really insightful, that I really enjoyed. So just, enjoying seeing her put some respect on it, some more respect on it. Like, yes, we can all go to her because it's an experience that we will all have, death and dying, but it's not something that you play with. You don't, you don't pass that on to, those that, I don't want to say that play, but those that maybe aren't as mentally sound or ready to handle or contemplate death in that way yet. So yeah.
Yeah. And like with what you're saying, Nisi, I'm also thinking about him saying, like, if you're going to work with Santa Muerte, like, remember, you are inviting death into your home. Like, you are inviting death to be near your family. Like, and also death doesn't discriminate, right? Because Santa Muerte, she will come for all of us, and not come for all of us like that, right? But yeah, she will come and take us. And if he says it really well in there, if she's willing to do your workings, right, and like, let's say that causes somebody else to die, what's to say that she won't do the same to you? Because she does not have morality based on what he said in the book. She doesn't have like like these people, that people. No, everybody's equal. She has open arms to all of us. And to the point that you were saying, Nisi, of him discussing, should we even approach Santa Muerte? I loved it. Basically, it's like on page 120. He talks about how, if we're going to work with Santa Muerte, like, is it like, do you have that true of a need? Because, right, Santa Muerte is associated with like gangs and criminals and all this stuff, and it's not for no reason. He says it best on page 120. He goes, are you marginalized to the point that no one but death itself will accept you? And I just thought that was just so well said. And then it makes sense that the people of society that are put on the margins, right, that basically get thrown out and get told like, you're not worth it because XYZ, it would make sense that they end up working with Santa Muerte and find this deep connection, right? Because at the end of the day, all of us just want to have some guidance, right? And that's a big reason why many of us come to spirituality or religion and do the things. So just that question, are you marginalized to the point that no one but death itself will accept you? Like, that really even made me think, because you could argue, right, because I'm a Hispanic person, oh, like, I have full rights or whatever to go work with Santa Muerte, sure. But considering what he said about our privilege and like being an American living in like the conditions that we live in, I genuinely don't know if that would be the best relationship for me personally right now, because like I don't have that need. I'm not marginalized to the point where death itself is like the only one who's opening her arms. So no, I love that point. And then I wanted to kind of backtrack and shout out a comment Alexis made, which I loved. She says, how does Santa Muerte fit into this then? She kind of feels like Guadalupe and Hecate to be. So a little something to think about there. Yeah. All right. What
Just
else would we? Yes,
I made a mistake. I confused Hestia and Hecate for a second there, because H's in Greek mythology was from childhood and stuff. So not the hearth and home energy, but definitely magic, like especially on the darker side. So that's why it made sense, because it always seems to be like a dichotomy with female goddesses, especially ones that are juxtaposed with like life and death, mother energy versus death energy and stuff. So I wonder if that's kind of what Santa Muerte is in conjunction with Guadalupe. Like, is that two halves of a whole? That's more of a question than like a statement.
No, and it's a very good question, and I'm excited for you to get to the book, because when you get to those chapters on La Virgen and Santa Muerte, I think you'll find a sense of answer there, because he kind of like talks about a little bit of the similarities but not similarities between them two. And then yeah, that's a great place to then launch off into some thought thinking. All right. Okay, so where else would we want to go?
I'm sorry, can I just say something really fast? Even though I am extremely eclectic, I'm extremely eclectic with, I have chosen to never ever work with Santa Muerte. Never. And I guess too, because I am here in Texas, and it's not like you don't know her, you don't see her everywhere. There are tons of botanicas, there's all kinds of stuff. And even when I was always in botanicas and things, and because of my my heavy integration at one point in with Santeria, there was always things with Santa Muerte, but I just won't. That is the one deity or whatever you want to call her that I will not work with. And I think maybe it's because they even in the book he even said, but even before reading the book, I always knew that if you ask her for something, more than likely, and even in the book it says, you're going to receive, or whatever it is going to come your way. But you must always be prepared to answer up that offering. And and not that I'm not prepared to give offering to any other deities or any other or anyone else that I work with, but I just felt like with her, it was like I always felt that it would be an immediate right then and there. You better you I don't know why I'm sounding so gangster like today, because never I don't ever do this, but it was to me her energy is like, bitch better have my money. Because that's how I feel. It's like, don't play with me. And so I don't play with her. And so I just I just had to I don't know. I just had to like say that even though I mean I to obviously you can hear in my voice, I respect her. There's reverence there. And like you were saying that, I mean, I know quite a few people or families that um deal with Santa Muerte. As a matter of fact, I mean, some of them have tattoos on them or whatever. And at my one job, my last job that I had, where um I worked with people and they were so surprised that I knew what their tattoo was or who she was or whatever. But as you also stated, Nuri, um a lot of the people that I know, that their families, that they grew up and that was their person. Like some people would be Mother Mary or some, or Mary or Jesus or whatever. That was their person. And that's how they grew up. But a lot of them, as you stated, Mary, was they were heavily, the family was like a drug cartel family. They everything was about money. Most of it was drugs. There were some other things going on too, because as you can probably think, involved with that, it's not always like a hey, how you doing type exchange. And they relied heavily on her for guidance and for help and for a lot of different things. And I mean, I totally respected them. I understood. I got it. But I just want to say, like, she is the one person that I have never, just not to be rude and crude, although I have been already, is that I just have never fucked with. Like, I'm not playing with her. I'm not gonna even make her think that I'm playing with her ever. And that's just the way it is for me, especially here in Texas and being around it, or being around images of her everywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate that share, Cynthia. And I dare say, I don't think it's that you like don't care to work with her. I think it's like our reverence, like it sounds like your reverence for her is just so high that you just respect your place. You're like, yeah, girl, I'm gonna let you do your thing and I'm gonna be over here, you know? That's sort of what I hear, but no, like that makes total sense, right? Because I sort of feel on that same page as well, right? Because again, I don't feel that necessarily that strong need, at least at this moment in my life. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I do have high reverence. I think I said that before, just in case she's listening. I think I said I have so much reverence for her. You can hear it in my voice.
yeah,
And it's not that. It's just that I'm not even gonna play because, like I said, I feel like her energy is like you ask, you receive, and you make sure that you pay up. That bitch, you gotta have my money kind of thing. And I don't always, my money sometimes funny. So I don't go with, I don't want her to, I just don't do it. But I do have a lot of reverence for her.
Yes. Yes, I love that. All right. And kind of jumping from Santa Muerte, I was curious with the chapter around the church and like working in the church. He discusses a lot about how even though we're practitioners of our whatever paths we are doing, that we can use the church as a way and as a tool to like consecrate our tools, cleanse our tools, like get holy water, get blessed water, and all these things. And I was curious on how we in the room feel about working in a church, because I'm not going to lie, me personally, like at this moment, if I were to try to go to a church to go make some holy water, I don't know if I would do it. Like I don't know if I fully feel comfortable just yet stepping into a church, but I'm curious, like how's the rest of the room feeling on that? Or have we already, Nisi? I wonder.
Oh, just send me your address, girl. I'll get you some. It's plenty of churches. It's too many to name. Obviously, this is my part of the show because I am a Christian. So being in a church, while sometimes I have two heads about it, because again, you have that church hurt, that church trauma, the indoctrination of it all, the dogma of it all. His perspective, especially with the Catholic Church, I want to go get holy water now. And not just from like a botanical witchy shop. I want to go and like, hey, Mr. Priest, can I get some of that in a bottle? Just go ahead and rev that up, please. And even with working with candles and incense, it seems very, particularly in Catholic culture, in the Catholic Church, it seems very, I don't want to say inviting, because I've technically only been to a mass one time in high school, once. So I can't say that with any concreteness. But it did give me like a gusto and a desire to even want to go get like holy water, to want to go light a candle in a church and know that, if I have a little something, something in my pocket, I know I got a little something, something in my pocket. Jesus know I got a little something, something in my pocket. Mary know I got it in my pocket. I don't need you to know though. So that level of, and he mentions that in that chapter, that we have to be discreet because we are working in a church, and this is a religious institution that represents many things to many people. At this point in time, you are a practitioner, you're a worker, and you are working your tools. The church at this particular point in time is a tool. The candles are tools, the incense are tools, hell, even the priest is a tool. So use your tools.
I love what you just said right now. You said, yeah, the church represents different things, many different things for different people. And I think like that's a very important angle to remember, because you're right. And that sort of helps capture like, yeah, there are going to be people that, are not going to like knowing that you're doing XYZ, but also some people understand. And, like you said, you, God, Mary knows, who else needs to know. Let's keep it moving forward. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think I hate to keep saying this because I'm not even proud of this actually, but because I live in Texas, because I can't stand our governor. I mean, that's a whole other, just everything and all the immigrant stuff. But I just get so mad at the way they treat people. But I am a part of Compassionate San Antonio and our Peace Center here, so I do a lot of work around good stuff here. But I will say that I think people here are very, because a lot of stuff is syncretized. I think that most people that I see or not, they don't bat an eye if they see you doing certain things, if you go into a Catholic church or whatever. Now, actually, that's pretty much, other than once or twice, I have, in the last couple of years, the Catholic church is the only thing I've been in. Although I would tease with the people that I was with, I would say, hey, you know what? watch when we go in. I'm gonna stick my finger in the holy water and it's gonna start bubbling up, because people are like, because they were always scared, like, oh my God, Cynthia, you're a witch or whatever, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna bubble up if I put my finger in there. But I have no problem like having a little deal and getting that out, and then of course being here, almost every place you go, it somebody's selling little things of holy water, but I really like the fact of taking other things into and consecrating things in there. Of course, in there we light candles in there, and I always do that. And if you happen to be in a service or something, you know how they have the sensors or whatever. Like I have a little one here in my house that I can use, like in my house. They have huge ones there, and whatever. And one of my old bosses, he became a deacon in a Catholic church, and Lord have mercy, I don't think I've ever been to something that was so long in my life. It took up all day long and whatever. And then one thing that really kind of took me aback was when because when they have to get down like and kiss the ring, man, that was really something that kind of took me back, because I thought like that was some mob kind of stuff. Although I do think the Catholic Church is kind of gangster too, but I still, I just was like, oh my goodness, because like the cardinal here, he is so sweet. He talks so soft. He's just wonderful. I just love him. But when I went to that, and my supervisor was becoming a deacon in Catholic Church, I was like, oh my God, just watching all the ritual. The ritual was, it was one after the other all day long. It was amazing to me. I mean, absolutely amazing. It was something I'll never forget, and something I'm glad that I was able to see.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that experience with the church, Cynthia. And Kiera, I saw that you were going to say something. It looked like.
Yeah, it's just that it makes sense. I mean, the church borrows so much from pagans in general, throughout history and stuff like that, that it's almost like a feedback loop. It comes back around. So it just makes sense that with the power of all that symbolism and all the centuries behind it and stuff, that it could loop back around to help make your magic more powerful. And there have been certain churches where I've been in and I haven't felt anything. And there have been certain churches where I've been in where I've felt so connected to God and so connected to just spirituality in general that I wonder if it's just down to the church or the congregation and whether or not that's a powerful group of people or a powerful place. Because, there are little churches in Virginia that I've been to, where they don't even have a parking lot and you just feel it. And then there are other ones where they've got the perfect stained glass windows, all the funding from the city is going into them and stuff. And it's just like the ritual is there, but it feels hollow. I do get, though, that like with the Catholic churches in particular, the way that they enmesh themselves in ritual, the symbolism, the colors, all that stuff, like they know what they're doing. I think they've been able to build up some power there. And I think that makes sense that if you can to integrate your magic, that would be the place to go. So it makes me like maybe I need to, I don't know, investigate my roots a little bit as I cycle through my understanding of folk magic, because I tend to think that my grandmother in particular had some abilities. She would talk about stuff like being able to see her mother in like certain forms as a ghost when she was older and stuff. I wonder if the reason that she was so devout, despite not necessarily always stepping into a church in later life, is because she found her magic in a Christian place in God. So I don't know, it gives me a lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And with you sharing about your grandma, Now sort of my brain's kind of going into the spell casting chapter at Chisos. Specifically, yeah, like my grandma, she was a devout Catholic, or she is a devout Catholic herself. And she's also the woman that's like, oh my God, you're having nightmares? Like, go put a bowl of water under your bed and like doing all these things. And I just find, right, like, oh, what? We're like going to church and we're still doing these things and like that folk magic and we're still like connecting to our traditions that way. Yeah. So kind of going into hechizos, what, and considering grandmas too and like our grandparents, like what are some connections that you guys have seen in your families, like any other Catholics around that are also practicing things, and how has that inspired you to like pursue doing something similar, maybe gaining some information from your grandparents, just thoughts around that?
Well, for me, it's kind of an inversion because my grandmother, my grandparents on my mother's side were all in the Baptist church. So it was more, rooted in like Southern tradition. And then my father was more of a Midwestern dude. So he came up Catholic. So there was an interesting mix of the two growing up where even though we weren't in church all the time, like sometimes my mother and I would go to church together just to kind of like connect to our roots, especially after my grandmother passed and stuff. But my father is not big on church, but every Thanksgiving he would cross himself. So it was like, even though he wasn't in it, even though he wouldn't consider himself religious, he still believes in God. And for some reason, that always was connected with like tradition and like we'd hold hands around the table and stuff to pray. That's what he would do. So I don't know. It kind of, it's a weird kind of thing in me where when I think of church, I think of Baptist tradition, but in the back of my mind, there's always a little bit of that Catholic stuff in there too. Um, I suppose maybe the Baptist thing just feels very linked, not just to like religion, but also to blackness, like to growing up with black ancestors, to growing up with black tradition in general. So maybe that's why I lean more towards that than to the Catholic approach to things, because that's just how I grew up in certain parts of my childhood. What was the original question again? I'm sorry.
It's fine. I don't even know myself either. It was just more like a, like, here are some thoughts. What do you think about this? Like, I
Right.
feel like I usually present it that way.
It was the link back to grandparents and stuff
Yeah.
too. But like each of them has their symbolism. They have their like rituals and traditions. And, I remember that thick Bible that my grandmother would have on the coffee table. Right. She knows. um, just the way that you would gather together for different things. Like church was all day on some of those Sundays. Like the get-togethers for like meals and stuff like that, potlucks or whatever. Like there's just it feels familial when you're involved in it from a Southern perspective. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum in the Catholic Church and stuff like that, or more of like the Presbyterian stuff, where I was recently at a wedding and it was like all day. It was like up down, sing a hymn, up down, sing a hymn. So it's interesting how ritual weaves into those things still, but just in like completely different ways. And the ways that like I automatically identify one type of ritual with one grandparent and another type of ritual with the other side of the family.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry.
Unfortunately, I was gonna say I didn't have my grandparents, but um, I did have my grandfather, but not in any religious type of way. And I have felt like my whole life that I have dealt with my grandmother and well, my maternal grandmother in a religious sort of way, even though she passed away when I was only 6 months old. But she took care of me from the time that I was born until I was 6 months and she passed away. And I even have graveyard dirt from her gravesite that I at times may incorporate a bit into some of my workings. But and my grandmother on my um father's side, that was all Southern Baptist, whatever. And but it was just regular, basically the traditional Southern Baptist type of upbringing. And but it was definitely I have stories.
The way
And
we interact with the dead is special. I was just saying the way we interact with like my mom has a cross with my grandmother's ashes in it that she keeps around her neck. And the wakes and stuff that we have, yeah, you get it. And the wakes that we have, the way that we preside over death and stuff like that, it's very like personal. It's not so far removed. I wonder if that's kind of a weird connection in there, like the way that this book is talking about Santa Muerte and death and stuff. I'm just curious from anybody who's read it if that is like a, because I don't know, Cynthia's just that stuff she was talking about really sparked a memory in me.
are you asking like connections around just death and then also Santa Muerte specifically?
I think more like connections around death, correction, connections around like rituals with death, but also just like the way that we process death, the way we interact with death and hold it with us, like the graveyard dirt, the ashes, the way that we keep our dead with us as we practice and as we live and move on. I wonder if there's overlap because we come from indigenous traditions and stuff. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. No, I don't think this book goes too much into it, but I do know, like, I think in the second half of the year, we're reading one book around ancestral practice and ancestral veneration. So I wonder if we'll get some more answers in that one. But no, like you bring up a great point right there. And based on like what you guys have been sharing right here, for those that have had a chance to either look over or have read over the spell casting chapter, I personally like noticed a lot of these connections with like, oh, okay, so like this is like he's calling this American Brujeria, and we recognize like those elements of like Santeria, even some curanderismo happening in there. And I don't know, like it didn't feel that far off from like the hoodoo tradition either. And I'll leave it there because I see y'all nodding. Thoughts?
There's so much. I noticed that as well. He mentions it as, early on in the book that you will see those overlaps, but it still feels good just reading them like, oh yeah, we do that too. We use brew like that too. We use agrimony too. Like it's just like yes, just all the yeses. Going back to the whole grandparents thing, my grandma was a devout Christian as well. She passed away in January of 2020. My grandma was the mother leader of our church, the very first church I ever went to. So when I tell you, I understand. It seems like though with Catholic Church, what you'll learn specifically for Kira, if I said your name right, I hope I did. Okay, good. Catholicism seems more like ceremonial magic. Like they have, it's a whole process. You need a list of material. You need robes. You need the censer. You need the candle. You need the hymn. Like it is very procedural and very much so ceremonial. It has those spiritual elements into it once you get into the procedure, but it is very much so PowerPoint outline 1A, 1B. This is what you need. Whereas Southern Baptist, we just kind of use what we have because that was all that we had. I grew up in a backwoods church where we had wooden pews, and a lot of times we didn't have instruments, so all you had to do was stomp your hands and clap your feet on the wooden pews and on the wooden floors. And it was very hot in the summertime, and the pastor's office was an outhouse. So I
Ooh,
understand.
okay, that's real backwoods. I was thinking of the church fans. Y'all must have had like a million of
Yes,
those.
yes, so many. But yes, as far as the spell workings, um my grandma was very much so the lady that knows. If you wanted to know something about the Bible, if you wanted to know something about your journey in Christ, you want to know something about your calling, Sister Martha was who you came to. So it sounded like it was going back to what you were saying about gifts and things. She was more so claircognizant. She could very much so very easily read situations very well. without having to pick up a book, without having to say too much, without having to do too much. She was just the one that knew for all of us in our family. So there's definitely a connection that's there. I have not gotten very much into the chapter on spells. I'm very excited to, but seeing the ingredients, the correspondences, is very much so hoodoo-esque. Like, oh yeah, we do that too. We use that too. We use this in the same way too. It's just adding that Christian flair to it. Like, you'll pray over it, you'll bless your salt, you'll do the cross, you'll do all of that first.
And I definitely felt like with reading the different parts, almost all of it. I can't even say different parts. I'm just gonna say the whole book. I just felt as though, I mean, yes, he coined American Brujeria. He may have coined that, but it is so eclectic. Like I am. I didn't feel like, oh, I have to push myself through this book because I'm not really into this, or I'm barely a little bit into this. It the but because I feel like I'm an eclectic witch, this just felt like I was reading something that was just tailor made for me, because it was just so easy to read it and to understand. It didn't even take a lot of like, let me go back. Now there were some things which the I don't know, there were two, before I say that, I'm just gonna say it was speak on what when Nisi was saying about how oh crap. You know what? Now, how Catholicism seems like high magic, and how everything has this has you, because a lot of things with Catholicism you have to go to, just like to, I mean, on first Sunday we can get some bread and grape juice or wine or whatever. I mean crackers, whatever. But you know how they have to go to confirmation classes. Well, like little old me coming from a different type of church, I didn't know that. But I had a friend who was Catholic, and I stayed the night with her, and her family took me to church with them the next day. Well, when it was time to go and get that, I just got in line. Left out of the pew and went and got in line with everyone. Oh my God, her family was horrified. They were horrified, and they were asking her like, why didn't you let her know? She has to go to classes and whatever. Whereas we didn't have to do that. But like she's saying, like everything, when I do think about the stuff that I know from Catholic Church, it does seem like you're practicing high magic, where everything is so ceremonial and everything has its place, and almost like you're being initiated, basically. With them, a lot is like they are being initiated step by step by step. And so it's almost like if you go through the year and a day type of things to become initiated into Wicca. And it just seems that way. Like you're learning step by step by step by step, and then you're there. And so that was something. But I just wanted to say one thing about really fast. About it was our first question that we kind of skipped over. It was what was something new that you learned? And well, some things were new, but some things weren't. One thing that I love, which is like I said, I felt like it was like I was right at home, is, oh my God, I was laughing actually reading through the part where he was talking about all the different all the different uses for Vicks. If when you're black, whether you got Vicks all on your chest, you got Vicks under your nose, you got Vicks on your back. Some people, I have known even or people that put Vicks in like tea, and you drink a little bit of Vicks out of the tea and stuff, and so I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, because he had all this stuff for Vicks, but there was just one thing. Let me see, what did I do? when he was talking to see, oh, it's helpful to stiff. Now I didn't know this. I mean, but then again, of course, it's not like my mom or my grandma or anybody was talking about, girl, let me put some Vicks so I can open up your third eye, you know. But when he was talking about that, and when he said, "Yep, you can use Vicks for that too," and he was going on, oh my gosh, I just was rolling. I was laughing, you know.
Like
It just
Simba?
yeah, I'm just like, you know what? I can't believe, I honestly did not know that Mexicans use Vicks the way Black people use Vicks, and even in more other ways, you know? And I just found that to be so interesting. And then the other thing that I did not know, because I have gone to plenty of things where they talk about the Virgen de Guadalupe and whatever, and but I did not know that a machete was, kind of a thing. But I see Nisi saying like, nope, I did not know that. And then I mean, I guess I can like show, and like, here's my machete. So I was like, well, dang, I really use it in my I stick it down in my warriors, and that's for Ogun. But man, I didn't know like it was double duty. I could use this for her too, because I always have candles with her. But anyway, those are like two things that I was just like really tripping on. So
No, the VIX thing is so real. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, growing up in my Latinx household, right? For everything, like VIX because you're sick, VIX because you're mad, VIX because like you're not tired yet, like whatever. So I love that. Literally, that part really inspired me to like really use VIX more in my practice because I'm like, wait a minute, it really is like a powerful agent. And I didn't realize like the ingredients that actually gives VIX that smell. Like I didn't realize it was herbs. I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah, like I was just like, oh my gosh, like VIX is actually really powerful and we can do a lot with it. Who knew?
Yeah, big
And
same. I remotely skimmed that part, and I was like, Vicks to open up your third eye. Do you know I have a tub of Vicks in my child's room right now? I will be taking it back.
You don't need this. Listen.
oh, this is great.
this book was great. Actually, it just was great.
As we're getting to the point where we're starting to wind down our conversation here a little bit. I'm curious, were there any like specific workings? And I know we didn't get a chance to talk much about the saints specifically, but just throughout the book, I know there was like different rituals, different workings. Any of them specifically pop out to you guys? And I'm curious to know like which ones. I know for me, I really want to try what it was, the alum crystal, like putting it in a glass of water as I forgot where he mentioned it. Like having it as a glass of water to help you like reveal the truth or like provide truth when you're giving when you're in a situation where you want to be able to like give the truth. And then also I really enjoyed the Saint Lucy spell for clarity. Like I found that really interesting, and that was in the Saint chapter. So those were some that stuck out to me that I want to try.
Well, because I just kind of want to mix it up a little bit, is when some of the stuff, because I am always about cleansing. I mean, just always. And so when he was talking about like the limpias and different ways of, of doing stuff or whatever, and I was like, oh, I want to try some of these things, and I want to mix it up and maybe like throw some of my own stuff in there or whatever. And then when you were talking about like even with the water, I mean, like here in San Antonio, sometimes people, it depends on if you crack the egg and put it down in the water and then they read it the next day, or like something that I do all the time is I have and I don't know, it's because I was just having these weird feelings. And so um, I had been keeping, just a glass of water, and I refresh it every evening before I go to bed. And then in the morning when I wake up, I go and I flush it down the water down the toilet and flush it away. And so it's just and then you know what? And I can't find the page, but when they it was when he was talking about Rue, and I was just kind of like blown away with the different stuff with Rue that he was talking about, because most of the people I know that deal with Rue and whatever, it's for money drawing more so than some of the stuff that he was talking about in here. And I just thought that's pretty cool. I just like reading something that I feel is close to my heart, yet I feel is I learn a lot of different things. I really, really like that. And and if I lived in New York, I don't know if I'd ever find her, if I can go talk to her, whatever. But it was the book that drew me um, to African based religions or ancestor veneration, and it's a book called The Altar of My Soul. And when I read that book, actually somebody gave it to me, and they said the ancestors and spirits told me I need to give this book to you. I don't know why, but I'm giving it to you. I'm gifting it to you. And they gave me that book, and I read The Altar of My Soul, and oh my God, it changed my life. And I mean, just changed my life. And I'm very thankful for it. I think her name is Sonia something. And I'd have to look it up, but I just hope one day I'm able to thank her. Just to thank her for writing that book and for how it touched me, letting her know how it touched me.
Thank you for your share, Cynthia. You should drop that book in the discussion feed for the book club, because I'm actually curious to like look it up and see what it's about. Yeah. Any other thoughts around spell work that we were inspired to possibly try? Or maybe things in the book that we noticed, oh, I'm already doing this. Like, who knew?
I'm technically already doing a rosary without having the actual rosary, so that was fun.
Ooh.
So I need to actually get one now. So yeah. I also going to this back to the saints. I
Yeah.
love Saint Martha because she seems like that old lady that'll tell you like it is, and I like that. I like that crone energy. And I like how he explained, how she's not talked about as much because Martha was the one that, in essence, kind of was coming up, pulling up on Jesus because, like, hey, you did such and such and such. Like, again, women in the Bible are depicted, or at least are taught to women as, being very meek, very shy, very mild. And Martha was not one of those. She went one of them ones, them twos, or them threes. And I loved everything about that. My bias, though, is Saint Michael. And obviously, it's because it's attached to Psalm 91, and Psalm 91 is my favorite psalm out of all the psalms. So that's just my bias. But definitely would love to work with St. Martha.
Love that. Yes. And okay, kind of the last little topic I wanted to cover before we close. Um, was there anything that we did disagree with the book? And the other question, what do you think about the term American Brujeria? Does it seem like it captures exactly what this is? Does it feel like, is it a needed term because a lot of these practices are elsewhere? Thoughts on the term or anything we disagree with?
I feel like because, I don't have any Latinx or Mexican heritage, I feel like I don't really have I don't have a dog in the fight per se. Like, this is the part of the section where you sit in the back of the class and you let people answer. Um, the term seems like it's needed because, again, marginalized people do need to reclaim those folk practices. But again, I'm not Mexican, I'm not Latinx, I'm Black, but I am with y'all. But this is the part where I sit in the back of the class.
I appreciate you saying that, Nisi. And to your point, I will go ahead and give my input since I do sit in the space as a Latinx person. I really love this book. Like, I love the concept behind it. I love how he really grabs these ideas and puts it in a nice little box, right? Because we're people, we like to label things for better or for worse. I like that he was able to really put that together and give something specifically to, I think of all the Latinx people in this country who are first generation, second generation, who like are living right in the between two worlds. And while yes, a lot of minorities, if not the vast majority of us, are sort of split in two worlds, maybe except for indigenous people. Um, because of that split, and because at least in my community and for me personally, it's been more recent. Like the last generation grew up in Honduras, where my family's from, and I'm the first one here. So in a lot of ways, like that disconnection's even more greater because like, oh, I'm an American now. I guess I'm not like from the motherland. There must be something different or whatever about me. And American Brujeria really allowed me to feel like, oh, there is a space for me that still is honoring my ancestors and my tradition, but reflects the reality of my world now. And it's like modernized, but not modernized. You guys kind of get what I'm putting down. My only note with this book is that I wish it wasn't only centered or like only specifically spoke about Mexican American folk magic. Like, while I understand that everything in here is Mexican American folk magic, I would argue that all of it is equally Latinx, Hispanic folk magic. So the one thing I wish there was a little bit more inclusivity on that part. Not that there wasn't. He did mention it like in two little sentences here and there that these practices are seen across Central America and Latin America as a whole. I just wish there was a little bit more of that. So that's kind of my insight or my thoughts on that. And
I'm sorry, you finish.
I had nothing else to say. That was it.
What I was gonna say about the book, and I think it was more so some of the things that I did appreciate how he brought up, and he brought up pagan stuff quite a bit, like to show that it was. And I guess because with me being eclectic witch, and one time, and Wicca was one of my first things, was one of my first loves. And but just like there are denominations and other parts, there are other stuff in Wicca, and I only practice Dianic Wicca, and where there are no men, you're only learning about goddesses, that's it, only women. And at the time, it served me well. I felt good about myself. The women there were extremely powerful. But I can understand how you may have, or how someone, in a way, how someone would say like, well, wait a minute, especially if they were Latinx, and they could say, like you said, you talked about Guatemala and other places, people talk about, and he was very heavily Mexican folk magic. But and I guess, like I said, it just resonates with me so well, because I'm in Texas and I'm in San Antonio, and everything is, it just felt like home. Reading this book was like home. It felt more at home than reading anything in the Bible. And like he says, one book can encompass everything of what the divine is, what the universe is, whatever. One book cannot encompass it all. But I guess it just felt so good while I was reading it. And like I said, I didn't feel like anything, like I had to be pushed, or like I was like, oh my God, can I just get through this one chapter? Or when am I going to get to something that's really make it really interesting to me? It's like the whole thing was just like, okay, Cynthia, this was dedicated to you. I was looking for my dedication in there, but he didn't give it. I'm going to have a talk with him about that. But I was just like, this is just really, it was just really good. But I guess it's because San Antonio is like I guess 90, probably 90%. No, it might be a little less, like 85 or something like that percent of Hispanic, Mexican. Everyone here has a different name for it. And then it's it's white people, and that might be. I'm not even sure if they're full. They might be 12, 15. And then, unfortunately, African Americans here are, we're not even a full 7%. We're almost, but it's very, very, very low, which is really hard for me because I have to try and seek out community when I'm missing that, because I do miss that. So that's probably one reason why I love our Witches of Colorville, but it's because I need that so much. But I just think that this was, I don't know who chose it. I don't know if you did, Nuri, or who proposed this book, but whoever it is, thank you. If it was you, thank you. Or whoever, if it was someone else there, just let them know that Cynthia says thank you, because it felt really good reading this. It just, I mean, a lot of smiles, a lot of laughter, a lot of learning going on at the same time, which you can't beat that with a stick.
Yeah, what more could you ask for from a book, right? A little knowledge, a little fun. And with your comments, Cynthia, that will be our last one for our book club today. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being here and like just being in the discussion. This was really good. I feel like we really discussed everywhere in the book. We really got everywhere, like touched on the church, Santa Muerte, spell working, ancestors in there. So this was a great conversation. And the reason we have great conversations is because you guys show up. You guys have that interest to be here. So thank you. All right.
Thank you, Nuri. Thank you all. It's nice meeting you.
Thank you, and it was wonderful seeing you all. And Kiara, even though you didn't read the book, I really enjoyed your input. You're
Thank
awesome.
you. Same here.
And
Got
Jimmy, I'm glad you were listening. I could see you like peeking your head in, smiling every now and then.
I just want to say, like, again, even though I didn't read the book, but I'm listening, and I pretty much got, like I said, I pretty much got like a course of what I'm gonna, because I'm definitely getting the book. Like, it's no questions asked. But I know, like, when I get there, now I know like what to expect when I read the book, and just remember everything.
Yeah.
Love. And I love some good community. So
Yeah.
closing announcements. All right. June, July book. We're doing something fun this year, and we're going to be reading 78 Degrees of Wisdom for June and for July, because this one's a little bit of a thicker book. So to give us the time and space to really get into this information and absorb it, we're going to split it in half. The actual split I will announce in the book club discussion feed. I'll try to have something. I'll have something up there by June 1st, just to let you know, like, okay, by June, we're going to read these first chapters, and then the next half we'll leave for that. If you don't know about 78 Degrees of Wisdom, there's a little bite about what the book is right there. And my words, this one definitely is like one of the tarot classics. Like, it's one of the books people usually think of first when they think of tarot, and like, oh, like, what should I read to learn? People like read 78 Degrees. Like, that's a good one to start with. I really love this book because I've read this will be like my third read through, but I personally love this one. I love how she talks about the cards, because she goes beyond just being like, oh, like, this is a 4 and the 4 is structure and da 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 da. But she really provides these descriptions that like tell a story, give you a lot of like things to think about, like making all these connections with symbols, stories, and like back to the artist on the reasonings on why the cards look the way they do. So she provides so much good information. If you're trying to expand your knowledge on tarot or just want to know some other viewpoints, perspectives, this is a great read. And I highly encourage you guys to join us for these 2 months if you're still on the fence about joining. All right. And then our final announcements, we have a high tea live happening with Ali tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. And to access that, all the details are in the Coven community and the details in the events tab. And our next book club will be on June 23rd 7:30 p.m., which will be the new time adjustment from today moving forward. So I know it's in the past it was at 7 p.m., but moving forward from this meeting, 7:30 p.m. book club meetings. And I'll continue to remind you in all the posts and emails and the things you see. All right. If there are any questions from anybody about anything happening going on. All right, beautiful. So we have reached the end of our meeting. Thank you again for being here. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And hopefully I see you guys at the High Tea Live. I will definitely be there in the chat. So maybe see you soon.
Thank
Right.
you for facilitating this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for facilitating and having, breaking stuff down for us. And you did a great job, Nuri.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate all your guys' feedback and appreciation because it helps me stay motivated and do the thing. But all right. Blessings. Have a good night. And let's see each other real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Okay, let me figure out how to get out of here.